So there is a question from Jennifer. And the question is, how does one apply discipline and maintain a daily meditation in our lay life?
How do we maintain what in our lay life?
How does one apply discipline and maintain daily meditation in our lay life?
Through effort. We tend to have this narrow view of meditation as something you do when you're sitting there with your eyes closed, that kind of formal view of meditation. And of course we do that as well, but the qualities you're developing in meditation, you can be developing at all times in all situations. The main qualities are we call right effort, the effort to bring up skillful states of mind, all the skillful states such as mindfulness and faith and kindness and wisdom and patience and compassion, all the different skillful states, and the effort to abandon them, abandon the unskillful states. So greed, anger, hatred, worry, anxiety, laziness, stubbornness, jealousy, on and on it goes. We're developing right effort, the effort to bring up the wholesome, abandon the unwholesome. We're bringing up mindfulness, clear comprehension, and developing firmness and stillness of mind, samadhi. Those are the central qualities and practices of meditation, but you can be bringing them up in any situation, any time of day or night, can't you? Your mind is with you wherever you go. So the more we incline to the Dhamma, remind ourselves of the teachings, then the more, quite naturally, the mind will be referring to the Dhamma through the course of your day. So you're working, you're socializing, you're with your family, you're on your own, at home, at work, it doesn't matter. Your mind goes with you every day. So there's always the opportunity to become more aware and reflect wisely on what's going on. And so if you're getting angry, stop and ask yourself, what's happening here? Why am I so angry or upset? What can I do about it? How does the Dhamma practice apply here? Maybe it's as simple as just noticing it's just a temporary state of mind. It's just a few thoughts and a feeling. It will pass. Maybe that's enough sometimes. Other times you have to work harder at it. But whatever's going on in your day, things are going well, good, but just also be aware things can change. Things are going badly, okay, you have to be patient with that, but try not to let your mind go into negative states of disappointment, despair. Just keep reflecting on things. Use the precepts. Every day we try and keep the 5 precepts. Every day we try and practice more mindfulness. And if you keep doing it, put effort into this, over time you get more experienced in the practice. It becomes more normal for your way of thinking. So we say you learn to think Dhamma. Normally, the unpracticed person, or someone new to Buddhism, or someone who's never encountered Buddhism, they're not thinking Dhamma. They just follow their moods, tend to follow their moods, their likes, their dislikes. And they may have many good qualities and may have all their, maybe intelligent and a wise person, of course. But at the same time, they maybe haven't trained themselves so much. Once you start practicing the Dhamma, you're training yourself in thinking Dhamma. So you start to use the Four Noble Truths, say. So if you're feeling stressed in any way at all, thinking Dhamma means you start to notice, oh, I'm feeling stressed. Where's this coming from? What's the problem here? What am I clinging on to in my mind? What is it that's the source of this stress? You start to become more interested in that way of thinking and applying it. Like when we don't practice the Dhamma, what we tend to do is when we're stressed, we just look for distraction, get away from it. It's a sort of normal reaction. So you don't really learn much about it then, do you? You just distract yourself from it as much as you can, and then it's not a very effective way of dealing with stress. So very quickly the stress returns, and often it's getting worse over time. So simply distracting ourselves, or trying to cover over the stress or even deny it, doesn't help. Whereas with the Dhamma, you're actually trying to develop the right qualities to deal with stress, to understand it, and then understand what its causes are, and then start to relinquish and change, give up those causes. There's a whole process of Dhamma practice, or what we call the path, that you can develop in any walk of life. So formal meditation, maybe once or twice a day, if you can, do some formal meditation. Regular disciplined meditation is essential. But then also develop these qualities in daily life, developing kindness, compassion, mindfulness in any walk of life at any time. There's always the opportunity to practice.
Thank you, Dhammajan. Could we now please invite, Elaine had a question. Elaine, do you still want to ask a question, Elaine?
I asked, hello, Tanajan.
Hello.
I asked a similar question, actually. I just said that I can observe the restless mind, and of course, you observe it coming and going. But my question was, how do you reduce this restlessness? And of course, you're quite right. Happily distract oneself with a packet of crisps or Doritos, instead of trying to investigate where it comes from. So I think you've already sort of answered the question, which is investigating, like a police, where's all this, how is it triggered?
Like Buddhist practice is very much a practice of learning. You're learning from your experience. So to learn, you have to develop the right qualities of mind, don't you? That's why mindfulness is so essential, because that's just learning to pay attention to what's going on. Patience helps, so especially when you're tempted to go for the packet of biscuits, rather than just going for the packet of the biscuits and pigging out when you're stressed, stopping and saying, what's happening here? You learn your own way of doing it. You stop, you establish mindfulness, and you question, what's going on here? Why am I so stressed? What is this stress? What's the nature of this stress? Where is it coming from? This is like using the Four Noble Truths in daily life. And I'm not saying you can never have a packet of biscuits to relax with, but before you go to the distraction, you try and understand more what is going on, learn from that experience, because then you may, be able to reduce that feeling of stress, or even prevent it from happening again. Because where does stress come from? It comes from misunderstanding of the truth. And sometimes all we need to do is investigate a little bit, and we'll see more clearly that we're clinging to something. Maybe we have some unrealistic expectation of our life, and we say everything should be perfect, and of course it's never perfect. We want other people to do exactly what we want, and they never do what we want. We want ourselves to do what we want and be successful and do everything well, and sometimes we don't. We want the world to be rosy and perfect, just like our mind says it should be, but it's not. That's something to investigate, isn't it? To see where our attachments lie, see where they're causing us suffering. And you get better at it. The more you do it, you get sharper, clearer, and then you need less of the distractions, because often your own wisdom and understanding is enough to deal with the stress. And of course, as stress reduces, the other qualities come up. So you have more kindness and compassion, more of a sense of ease and well-being in yourself. So again, distraction becomes less important, because your mind is happier within itself.
Thank you, Tanajan. Thank you.
There's one question here, Longpo, and it's about okay, let me read it out. Dear Ajahn Kalyano, thank you for your wisdom, which gives me great strength. Currently, I am struggling to lift myself from this great sadness I feel about the suffering in Ukraine. How do I cope using Buddhism to wish metta to all beings and yet not remain so sad constantly?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are very sad at the news, and because also these days the news is so graphic. You actually see the suffering very clearly, destruction, war. Maybe 50 years ago you hear about it, but you don't really see the details. Now you see it and can know about it very clearly, and you know all the details very quickly. So it's very confronting. The Buddha, said to live in this world, because especially now, in the time of the Buddha, there's, I don't know how many people, a few 100 million people in the world, maybe. Now there's 7 billion people, so there's lots of problems, wars in a number of places, not just Ukraine, but other places as well. And to live in the world with all these people and their problems, we need the 4 Brahma Vihara Dhammas, these 4 sublime attitudes. That's metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha, or kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. And particularly with difficult news of wars, disasters, people suffering, and especially large-scale mass suffering, which is very hard to take, we need equanimity to just keep our mind balanced and sane and mindful as we absorb this news. So you need to work on this. You need to work on your mindfulness practice and reflect on karma. And, it's a very hard reflection to bring up, but it's true, isn't it? Everyone is the owner of their karma, and currently there are people in various parts of the world experiencing quite tough kinds of, we say, vibhaka karma, resultant karma, whether it's war or natural disaster or whatever it may be. And we have to accept that, just as we have our own karma, and sometimes things come up very badly and very difficult for us, other people also. Doesn't mean to say we can't have kindness and compassion for them. Of course we can, because these 4 sublime attitudes we develop together, and they're very closely linked. It's not like you have one and not the others. You have them all 4 together. But for the cases where there's people that are suffering and there's not much we can do about it, we have to develop some equanimity. And that doesn't mean cold, callous, I don't care kind of attitude. It's an attitude of, I would like to help. If there's anything I can do, I will do. But if I can't do anything, I'm going to have to accept that. One other aspect is, the state of mind that is best able to help other people is a mind that is balanced, calm, cool, collected, can think straight, is mindful. Then you may be able to look around and see of smaller or bigger ways you may be able to help. So, if it's Ukraine, if you're calm, cool, collected, then you may be able to say, okay, there's this charity I'm going to donate to that is going to provide some relief funds or help refugees or do this, do that. When you're more calm, more cool, collected, you can look at solutions and practical things that you personally can do. Or if there's nothing physical, material you can do, you can meditate, send your thoughts of compassion across the airwaves. You can do that for all beings in all states of suffering everywhere. But you need this cool, calm, collected state of mind in order to do that effectively. I always like to think of the staff in the emergency ward of the hospital, because occasionally I visit them when people I know are in hospital. You visit them and they're always so impressive. The doctors, the nurses, they're cool under stress, difficult situations. Sometimes they're saving lives people are literally dying on the stretcher as they're brought into the hospital, and the doctor saves their lives. I've seen it before, and it's so impressive because they keep a cool, calm, collected state of mind so that they can work effectively. You imagine if all the doctors and nurses were panicking or depressed so that they couldn't concentrate, couldn't work, nothing would get done. It'd be disaster. So we rely on people's equanimity to get things done. So it's not a state of coldness, not caring or indifference. It's just keeping the mind cool, accepting the problem is there. Things have happened. This is karma. Things have happened. But then looking to see what can be done to relieve suffering, address the suffering in whatever way is possible. And that applies to us. If we're sitting here suffering with the other people's suffering, we're not able to help them. We're adding to the suffering of the world. We're not going to be able to think straight. We're caught up in our own gloom and depression. And I see it every day. People are saying, oh, I can't cope with this bad news, and I'm so sad and depressed. That state of mind is not a good state of mind. That's suffering. So our duty is to relieve our own suffering so that then we can maybe have a look at other people's suffering and see what we might do for them. So if you're really suffering over the suffering of people in Ukraine, for example, you're not helping them. You're doing the opposite. You're making your own mind worse, and you're not in a position to help them if you're caught up in your own suffering. So the best way to help other people in the world who are suffering is resolve and reduce your own suffering. It just makes sense, and that's what we have to do, and that's why we start with ourselves first. But that doesn't mean to say we can't do anything for anyone else, but we have to see that what we do for ourselves is helping the rest of the world. I always like the way Ajahn Buddhadasa used to talk about suffering in the world, because he had a broad vision, great wisdom and compassion, and he'd say, you can look at the world's suffering as like units of suffering. So if it's 7 billion people in the world and there's a certain number of them are really suffering, well, anything you can do to reduce the number of units of suffering in the world is a bonus. It's what we want. So even if you can only reduce your own suffering by a little bit, you're reducing a few more units of suffering in your own mind. Well, that is reducing the overall tally or amount of suffering in the world. If you can help someone else, even better. But even just helping yourself is already reducing the overall suffering of the world. So if we start from ourselves and work outwards, then that's the correct way, that's the effective way to do something.
Thank you, Long Paul. Are there any more last questions? There are no more questions this evening, Long Paul. Thank you so much for a beautiful session today. We shall call the session to an end, and we'll have Darren lead with the closing homage.